Ladies and gentlemen, boom. Welcome back. Couple Casuals Podcast. I am your host, Stefano. Today I got a special one for you guys. It's our first fighter on the pod.
Oh, nice.
First MMA fighter in particular. My buddy, Theocharis, a.k.a. Tommy Theocharis, a.k.a. the Greek god. Salute, brother. Thanks for coming on. It's fight week right now, so he can't be drinking.
That was a good introduction, by the way.
Thanks, bud. Little got one here. We just fired it right up, and I got to give a quick shout out. Let me take a sip here 1 second.
Fuck, that beer looks good.
Holy fuck, that's good beer. Got to give a quick shout out to CandleHand. Visit them at www.candlehand.com. They sent us some new fucking hands over here, so we got a couple new good looking paws. So give them a look. And I also have a promo code, but I don't fucking remember it, so I'm gonna throw it in the bio. But without further ado, Tommy. It's fucking fight week, baby.
Yeah, it's fight week. We're about it's Thursday today. Yeah, so we're literally a week out now, basically.
Holy fuck, bud.
Fight next Friday, so 8 days.
Talk to us about it, brother. Talk to us about it. What's happening? Where is it?
So it's in Alaska. It's at 185 pounds. It's for a title.
No way, it's for a title too?
Yeah, it's for a title.
What's the promotion?
It's called like Ace Combat Entertainment. It's like one of those like smaller regional shows, but they do have a lot of good fighters that compete on there. So there's, I think, a former UFC fighter's fighting for the 135-pound title.
Okay.
I forget his name.
We'll look it up. We'll look it up. But no, it's gonna be it's exciting. Like the travel day is going to be really long on the Tuesday. Yeah. The fight is, what's the exact day?
April 15th.
April 15th. Today's like the 7th or some shit.
I think, yeah, it's the 7th.
Something like that. Yeah. So pretty much, when do you dip?
So I head out on the Tuesday at 6:15 a.m.
Yep. You know how long the flight is to Alaska? Which, by the way, guys, that's fucking awesome. Imagine fighting in Alaska. That's some medieval shit. You know what I mean?
I'm pumped. It's exciting, man. Like, it's one of those experiences where I'll be able to tell, you know, my children and grandchildren, if I have any children.
You will, yeah. You got the genes, man. You got to pass it on, bro.
Yeah. It'll be a story that I'll be able to tell, like, my children and grandchildren. You know, going to fight for a professional title in Alaska, which is a once in a lifetime experience. Like, going to Alaska alone is very cool. It's going to be interesting. But yeah, the flight's on the Tuesday, leave at 6:15 a.m. Mm-hmm. Fly to North Carolina, so Charlotte. And then from Charlotte to Seattle, and then from Seattle to Anchorage, Alaska.
Buddy, that's a fight before the fight.
I know, man. So I got the flight before the fight and the weigh-ins, and so, you know, like it's gonna be like a really grueling process. Like, it'd be nice to fight at home, and, you know, I was supposed to fight at home in December, but then that kind of fell through. And I was really looking forward to it. I was planning on sleeping in my own bed the night before the fight. You know, weigh-ins, like I'd be in Toronto like that day, and, you know, get to eat at like my favorite restaurants and stuff, and you know, be around like friends and family, and, you know, just kind of feel comfortable. Whereas, you know, I'm that guy going away, fighting the hometown guy.
Yes.
It always seems like that, and it always, you know, it always happens to me, but I'm used to it right now.
Yeah, so. Man, because like a lot of people don't really know. Maybe that's something we can start with. But before, because I want to go like to the beginning too at one point too. But since we're here, like Canadian MMA, man, how difficult it is to kind of land fights and then for them to stick. Yeah. Talk about that for a bit, because a lot of people don't know that. Like the real grind that it is before the fight even shows up. Yeah.
So basically what happens is mixed martial arts in general, to put on an event, it's a business. It's for people to make 100%. Money. So when you take that into consideration, you want to, the main way to make money at an MMA event is to sell tickets. So in order to sell tickets, you're going to need local fighters. And in order to have local fighters, you know, you're going to have to put on an event in, you know, Toronto, or, you know, anywhere. Let's just say Toronto right now. Okay. Mm-hmm. So to put on an event in Toronto, you don't want, so for example, hypothetically, okay, I'm from Toronto.
Right.
I would sell tickets here, but I wouldn't sell tickets in Alaska, right. Where I'm fighting. And so basically for myself to get a fight, I'm going to have to, you know, reason with these promoters and say, you know what, I'm hungry, I want to fight, you know, I'll take a pay cut, because otherwise,
because you got to negotiate, right?
Yeah.
And you're doing that all yourself as well?
I've got a manager, but you know, I do a lot on my own as well.
Yeah.
I'm at that point where I think I need to build my record up a bit more in order to, you know, in order for it to be sustainable, I guess.
Yeah.
However, so for myself to fight in Alaska, they're going to have to pay, you know, travel, hotel, my purse, and all of this sort of stuff. And I wouldn't really be necessarily making them that much money because I'm not selling tickets at the venue. And so
it's a business at the end of the day. That's what it is.
Yeah. And so now they're going to like match me up with their top fighters and just kind of, you know, bring me into loose, right?
Yeah.
And so
because they want to feed their block, they want to feed where they're from and build them up as much as they can.
Yeah, so that's where it gets a little difficult, and there aren't really many shows in Ontario here because the Athletic Commission, who regulates the MMA governing body, I guess it's expensive to put on shows in Canada because they charge so much to just kind of
so there's a lot of like politics, for lack of a better word.
Yes.
When it comes to it, and that unfortunately it kind of it delays the development and the prosperity of MMA in Canada, and it's the same for boxing. But I think boxing has a little bit more of an opportunities, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in Canada here alone, this year, we've had maybe 4 professional MMA fights throughout the whole entire year, right? As opposed to the States, you're having, I don't even know how many, like
way too many.
Like there's probably like 20 this weekend.
Yeah, straight up.
Like so,
like probably even more across the whole nation. Jeez, man, there's probably so much.
And there's only and I haven't really thought about it like that, like saying it out loud. Yo, there's only been 4 professional MMA events in all of Canada this year, and then there'll be like 20 this weekend in the States alone. Like, come on.
Like, guys fight 4 times a year. They, like,
it's much easier to get fights in the States when you're from there, right? Because there's a lot more opportunities, whereas here there's really not as many opportunities.
100%. So this fight in Alaska, which by the way I think is so interesting, man. Yep. You're right. It's going to be great for your experience. And of course, like you said, there's the fight before the fight kind of thing, and you got to just to get there is a whole. So guys, imagine that you're going to fight. You're going to literally fight somebody, and then you got to endure all that transit, all like the media that's required, whatever else is required from you, the cutting weight, of course.
Yeah, that's the worst part.
How did this fight come about? How did it all work out?
So I had messaged. Okay, so I'm always watching MMA. I'm watching regional 100%. Promotions and seeing, looking at potential matchups for myself. Oh, this guy would be a good fight. You know, I'll watch LFA or, a lot of shows that are on UFC Fight Pass and, take a look at if there's guys my weight class, like 185, 170 fighting, I'll watch and I'll kind of tune in and see what these guys are all about.
Scouting them, man.
Yeah, I'm always scouting. Yeah. So I've known about this guy for like maybe 2 years. Like pre-pandemic, I asked to fight him for Alaska FC, which is a promotion on UFC Fight Pass. And I asked to fight this guy 2 years ago, but then it didn't really happen. And then this particular promotion, I messaged them. I think it would have been the start of the year. They asked me to fight in March. And it just logistically didn't really work out for me. And then they asked me to compete on this card in April, and it worked out. And Perfect. It was this guy. So yeah.
So you kind of look to find potential matchups because at the end of the day, you also haven't been able to fight as frequently as you would want to in the past. Obviously with COVID and all that shit that's been going on, right? It's really conflicted with everything, right?
Yeah.
So you got there's a lot of it falls on you, and it seems like a lot of it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really want to make excuses, but like it's shitty being a fighter in Toronto, when there's not really many opportunities to compete.
Would you ever consider moving away to fight? Training in another gym?
Yeah, I always have. Like it's been my dream to like move to like Miami to like a sick gym where you're in the sun all year round, Miami training MMA. Yeah.
How sick would that be?
I know, but it's just like it's not sustainable as far as like, you're paying rent up the ass, man. Yeah. Like you're paying like $2,000 a month and I don't know.
Yeah, it's really like people see like guys like Conor McGregor and shit, they making all that money. Guys, it's really like a small percentage. A lot of the time, like guys are literally grinding. They're fighting for the fights, and it's a lot. That's why I have so much respect for you guys, man, when it comes to like being a fighter, because there's so much that's involved. And I want to get into that more deeper, but just on training abroad, I know you've been in Vegas a lot too. Talk to us a little bit about that, man, the UFC PI and shit.
Yeah, Vegas. So I've been there a few times. Like I used to go, my parents used to take me there in high school. We used to go to like the UFC events Memorial Day weekend.
Buddy, that's
so like we watched like Rampage versus Rashad, and like back when there was season 10 of like the Ultimate Fighter, and I was like the biggest Rampage Jackson fan. So I've always been, you know, a fan of going to Vegas and going to the events and stuff. And I went there in 2017 as like my first time as a professional, trained there at the UFC PI. It was awesome. Then I went, it would have been this November 2021, so this past November. And it was like an incredible experience. I was there for 3 weeks, training with like the top guys, trained with Francis Ngannou, Darren Till.
I'm going to throw up a couple pictures. You got to send me that, man, so I can fucking throw up a couple pictures. It's badass. You just see Tommy fucking sparring with fucking the heavyweight champion of the world.
Yeah, I'll tell that story as well. So I'll tell the Darren Till and the Francis Ngannou story. So Darren Till, there was like rumblings around the gym that he was training there. And he's my
UFC PI.
No, at Syndicate MMA.
It's in Vegas though.
Yeah. So what happens is like for the UFC PI, it's you know, you get invited there by, you know, fighters or a coach that's kind of doing running a practice there. But there's like two main gyms that people train at. It's Syndicate MMA and Extreme Couture. Yep. So we were at Syndicate MMA, and there's rumblings around the gym that Darren Till was there, and I was like fired up because I love watching him fight.
Yeah,
seems like a cool guy, like outside of fighting, and you know, he's in my weight class. So you know, I wanted to kind of test my skills and see where I kind of stood in that kind of sense. 100%. Right?
When are you gonna get that opportunity?
Exactly. Know? So I heard like the day before that he had gone away. I'm like, oh, he's left. Like, you know, he's not in Vegas anymore. He's not going to train. But then the next day it was sparring day, and he all of a sudden shows up to the gym. And so I'm standing on the mat and I'm seeing him walking in with his gym stuff. I'm like, oh shit, there's Darren Till. So I literally like walk over to him, like did like sprinted over to him. I'm like, yo, me and you are going first round. And he's like, what? He like looks up. He's like, who is this fucking guy, man? Like I just literally call him out. I'm like, yo, me and you first round. And like he hasn't even put his like gear on. He's like just walked in the gym. He walked in the door.
Man, that's kind of like confrontational in the way you would.
It was, and I didn't realize it. And I'm like, as soon as I realized that, I'm like, oh my god, like. What was
maybe I should have. Yeah. Maybe you know why? Because you were excited.
Yeah.
So it came out a little bit like a challenge. But fuck it. And then what happened?
So like we're warming up and stuff, and they're like, okay, first round, and I'm like, oh shit, like did I really call him out? And like is it? So he like gives me an eye contact. He's like, me and you. I'm like, yeah, okay. And we ended up having a really good round. Nice, so man. That was a cool experience. And then in January it was January, or no. No, it was November. Okay, so it was November again. So Francis Ngannou was at Extreme Couture. He was training there. I think he trains there full time now. And he's getting ready for his fight against Ciryl Gane. Yep. Is that how you pronounce his name?
I think so. It was it was his recent fight.
Yeah, so I'm at the gym, and, you know, before you know, the sparring starts, you go up to people. You got round one, you got round two. You know, you kind of lay out the land of, you know, who you're going for those rounds.
Yeah.
And so basically, Francis looked at me and he's like, "Who you got round two?" I'm like, and he's like, "You want to go?" I'm like, "As long as you don't kill me." He's like, "As long as you don't kill me." I'm like, "Oh, this guy's like a nice guy." Yeah. Like, and so we went, before that, I took the round off, so I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go for Francis.
Yeah, get fresh.
I'm fresh, and I just saw him beating the shit out of a guy. I'm like, oh my god, like this is not gonna be fun. And basically, it was like kind of the same thing with Darren Till. Like I stepped on the mat after the round, and I was like, hopefully he doesn't make eye contact with me to go. And so he does. He's like, okay, we're going. And so we have a, like, you know, we're standing there, and I'm just like looking at this guy. I'm like, holy shit, like this is a heavyweight champion of the world. I'm standing toe to toe with this guy, and I'm like just trying to kick him, and anything he hits me with, I'm like, oh my god. So he'd kick me in the leg, and my whole body would go, you know, the one way. And he ended up like taking me down and just like pounding me out, which was crazy because he did that in the Cyril Gane fight.
He was working on the wrestling.
So exactly, like people were like, oh, like that's crazy that you know, he decided to take him down and, you know, do that. I'm like, well, he did that to me in November, so like that means he was definitely, you know,
100%
to do that. But then after that round, he asked me to go again. I'm like, oh my god, okay. So
you can't say no,
No, you can't say no.
You can't say no. Yeah. But 100%, he seems like a good guy, so he would know when. And think about that experience. That's what I love about MMA and like boxing and fighting and stuff, is that you could train with anybody. You know, there's this somewhat humble mentality that obviously there's ego too, but if most fighters, like most reliable and seasoned fighters, are pretty humble, wouldn't you say?
Yeah,
and I feel like he is too.
Yeah, no, he's I mean, for being like the biggest
man.
badass,
Dude,
like he's a great guy. So
I love to see it. So let's talk a little bit more about you as a fighter, man. Let's go back to like the beginning. First of all, do you remember the first time you ever got punched in the face? I always think about that.
Oh my god, that's a great question.
Do you remember? Because I remember as a young boy. I don't know about like for the ladies watching. Like we always I used to think like, what's it like getting punched in the face as a kid, right? Yeah. And then when I actually got punched in the face, I was like, okay, it's not that bad, but it sucked, but it's not that bad.
I think I was thinking about this the other day. It's not that it's bad. It's more like the intent, you know, punching someone in the stomach, it's like whatever, you know, but it's just disrespectful hitting someone in the face, right? Yeah. I think that's what makes it confrontational, and that's what makes it like a big deal.
And it just rattles your cage. That's the best way to put it. Do you remember was it like a street fight? Was it like young, when you were a young boy?
I don't even know. I think what comes to my mind was in high school in the locker room in gym class. I was like making fun of this kid, and he just comes and socks me. I'm like, oh, did he really sock me? And like, I didn't really know what to do, and I was like, kind of like shocked. I'm like, did he just fucking hit me in the face?
Just get punched in the face?
Yeah.
And that's usually the first thing that comes to your mind, I think. So that probably is the first time you ever got punched in the face.
Yeah, I think I'm thinking that it was.
Mine was at a movie theater, man. I was at Colossus. Back in the day, there's right over here actually.
Yeah.
There's a movie theater. It's called Colossus, and like some kids were like trying to rob me. I was being smart, and they punched me in the face. Yeah, it was the first time. I was fired up though. I was like,
how old were you?
I was like fucking grade 9, so I was
That's like what I was.
Yeah, same
grade
thing.
9, 10.
Like 14, and then after that, you figure it the fuck out. But what led you to say like, I'm gonna go to the gym? I want to start training now.
Okay, so basically, like I was always kind of an athlete growing up, and I finished playing hockey, and at that time.
Wait, how long did you play puck for? I never asked you that actually. Because by the way, guys, me and Tom, you know, we met at the infamous Early Mercy. We met on a social level, and then we ended up training together a couple times. Tommy's been a fucking beauty since, so it's been.
I love training with you, by the way.
Yeah, it's been fun, man.
I love it.
I like to keep it active and like fucking.
You can push the pace.
I try,
and you
man.
got good technique, so it's nice.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that, man.
So we got to do that more, right? I'm surprised we didn't train before this fight. By the way,
I know, man. I told you, you just gotta let me know, man.
I know. Well, the thing is, like, you live far away, right? Like, that's the only shitty thing.
I know.
Like, for you to come to United, it was like a trek for you.
Yeah, it was, man. On the way home was a fucking hefty, but it was worth it because I was training with my boy. You know what I mean? Like, it's fucking fun. But so like stepping in the first gym, like that kind of thing. Yeah. So you played puck until when?
I played hockey until I was 15. I was like playing like AA growing up.
So it was like me in soccer too. Around that age, I fucked off. I started playing like rugby and football.
Well, what happened was like all these kids were hitting puberty, and like I didn't hit puberty until I was like grade 12, right? And like to play hockey at that level, like at a AAA or junior level, like you have to be a decent size, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so,
you're a tall, big guy now.
Well, I was like probably at that point like 5'5".
Really?
Like, yeah, I was like really small. I was a really small kid growing up in high school.
Dude, now you're at least 6'1", bro.
Yeah, 6'1", 6'2".
Yeah.
Yeah, so I basically stopped playing hockey. Like I was just getting shoved around, and you know, I wasn't as physical as the other players just because of my size. And that was around the time that UFC was getting big. So like UFC 100, and back in like 2009, that's when I was like, I was watching it with my dad. We're in the basement. I had some cousins over and some like aunts and uncles, and then like all like the kids and the dads are watching the UFC 100, and Bisping gets knocked out like so hard. GSP fought. Like it was just like a crazy night, and I look over to my dad. I'm like, I want to do this. He's like, okay, for sure. Like he was down for it.
You still remember that, eh?
Yeah.
How old were you at that time?
Oh my God. So I would have been like 16 maybe.
Oh fuck.
15 or 16. Yeah, 16. Okay, yeah, it was 16 because of '09. Yeah.
Man, I remember, there's literally so many guys that have that same story.
Yeah.
Except a lot of them, like the vets that are in the game, it was from like Hoist Gracie and shit. When they would see UFC 1, 2, no weight classes, guys. Go look that shit up if you ever want to look that up. Yeah. And they just got inspired. And that's what happened to you.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what happened. And then, you know, I started watching, I watched it a lot. So I watched it obviously before UFC 100, but UFC 100 was the moment where I'm like, okay, I need to do this. But what happened was, you know, I started at this karate kickboxing gym back home in Stratford, Ontario. And, you know, it wasn't really like what I was looking for. It's not like MMA, Muay Thai, kickboxing oriented. It was more so just like, it's like you know, karate, right? Like you don't want to do karate.
Yeah, I feel like every kid starts somewhat with karate. Their parents put them in karate because they think it's self-defense. It's better to put your kid in wrestling, dude.
Yeah, wrestling.
Put your kid in wrestling, man.
Wrestling is probably the hardest sport. It makes you like mentally tough. Yeah. You learn so many life lessons.
Most champions, it's the foundation of MMA. I would say
most champions, yeah.
Yeah, wrestling.
It dictates a fight where you go.
Because you can bring it to the ground.
Yeah.
So this place was karate in particular.
Yeah, karate kickboxing. And then I started driving to London, Ontario, which is like 45 minutes to train with like Sam Stout, Chris Hordecki, Mark Hominick, like all these guys that were in the UFC. And I was like watching them and I thought it was like super cool. I was, you know, training with them. And then things basically escalated.
Did you make any connections to be able to rub shoulders with them, or like did you know a guy that brought you in, or you just showed up?
The gym and started training, and then basically like I would do the classes, and then I was doing private lessons with Chris Hordecki, who was like my first coach, and then you know, just escalated to like sparring with the pros, and then fighting. So yeah,
the secret sauce is show up.
Just
keep showing up.
You know, fight basically at the gym. If you get beat up, then you have to show up again the next day. You can't just be a bitch. So
exactly, I know, and that's a part of it, and it's one of the elements of fighting. It's like, it's not just a fight, guys. It's literally so much preparation. You're sparring all the way up to that fight. You have to learn all these different disciplines. Like, let's run through every single discipline that's required in MMA, starting with obviously like your cardiovascular system, your mental game. Those are two big ones before you even talk about fighting. Before you even get into wrestling, jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, boxing, man.
So there's you just named like 4 or 5 disciplines, but like in those disciplines there's like a million things to learn.
Exactly.
It's not just like, oh, boxing, oh, you know how to box.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, jiu-jitsu.
There's counter boxing, there's your defensive skills, your head movement.
There's like a million different things to learn. Like, you know, it's not easy.
That's why I think, honestly, I'd like to debate anybody to say, what is a harder sport than fighting? It's an individual sport. You have to go in there. You're literally going in front of your modern day gladiators, Tom. Like, think about it.
It's not an easy sport. I don't know. Like, because what sport could rugby's tough.
Yeah, but it's a team sport though. Yeah, this literally all on you. Like, obviously, there's not to downplay any other sport. Every sport is fantastic, and I think it's great.
Hockey's pretty sick. I like watching.
Of course,
watching hockey is so much fun.
So much fun, but. When people are watching a hockey game and 2 guys drop the mitts, what does everybody do?
Everyone just loves it.
Everybody fucking loves
hockey fights are so exciting.
So exciting.
They're so exciting.
And man, they're fucking tough if you think about it. You're on skates.
Yeah.
You're bare knuckle. You got to take the guy's bucky off.
Yeah.
You got to take dude, man, think about it. There's so much that's involved. That's a discipline in itself. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's kind of coming out of the game now.
Yeah, right? That sucks. It really sucks. Like, you can't even fight in the OHL.
Wait, come on.
No, like, I think if you fight once, you get a suspension, and then
What is it, fucking beer league?
I don't know, man. Like, it's pussified now. It's crazy.
What's going on with our culture? But that's a whole fucking other conversation. Yeah. But then, so you got inspired. You fucking started training. You started traveling to London.
Yeah.
And then you started getting fights. Yeah.
Basically, I began in like 2009, and I didn't have my first MMA fight until 2014. Actually, it was exactly 8 years ago yesterday, my very first MMA fight.
Nice, man.
So yeah, I got a Facebook memory yesterday that I fought. It was at the Joe Louis Arena in Detroit, Michigan. So
you got pics and stuff from it still?
I do, yeah.
Nice, man. Yeah.
But at that point, my parents didn't want me competing, and so they actually like took all my kickboxing gear away, and like they thought I wasn't doing it at that time, but then I went behind their back. Fought at the Joe Louis Arena, and they found out. They were super pissed at me. I won that fight.
How did they find out, though?
I I don't remember.
Because there was no social media really back then.
No, I think they found out, like, I think because all my friends were going, I think one of them told their dads type of thing. So, like, there's like 30 of us, sorry, not us, my friends that drove to Detroit, and then my brother was there. And then I ended up knocking the dude out in the second round. And then, like, I think I fought 2 more times. I was 3-0 and 3 knockouts. Then my parents were like, just tell us from now on. So yeah, they're cool with it.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's always hard to try to explain to your parents that you want to get into
parents.
Yeah, exactly. The immigrant parents too. Like my parents would not be like, even when I told them when I was going to train in boxing, I wanted to compete a bit. Like even with rugby, man.
Yeah.
Rugby, my mom never like used to come like to the games and shit because they're scared, right?
Yeah.
They don't understand it.
They don't understand competing.
Exactly. They don't understand that you got a dog in you that needs to get out, or else it's just going to come out in negative ways. Think about it though, man.
That's a good point. Yeah.
It does. But now when you have kids one day, you'll be able to. Don't you feel like that? Your experience is.
I'll be pushing them to play sports. Yeah. I think you know what though, hockey's a great sport. I'd push them to play that. What else would you tell your kids?
100%. I always think about this, man, because I look forward to having a son one day, or a girl, whatever. But if it's a son, it'd be cool. But just because of the whole sports thing. But I think firstly, I want to put him in wrestling because boxing at a young age, I don't want him getting hit in the head. No. You know, I seen some young kids in there. They're studs, like at Grants and shit. They're studs, dude. But I think wrestling's the move. You get them in wrestling at a young age. Soccer, I always played soccer when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And then usually it seems like soccer or hockey, and then figure out what the fuck they want to do.
I think wrestling would be definitely the martial art I would put my kid in because, first of all, like the discipline to wrestle as well as like you learn the mental strength and fortitude to, you know, compete.
And that's what it's about.
And also, like, you look at the jiu-jitsu kids programs and like they're just so like, you know, you're not learning anything. It's more so like a daycare type of thing, right? Yeah. Whereas, you know, I'm the like kids wrestling, you're actually wrestling.
Yeah, because there's a little bit more. It's more specific in a sense when you're doing jiu-jitsu as a kid, and it's hard for kids to like really sit there in those motions and stuff. With wrestling, there's many components that can come in that, and again, mental strength is one of them. Because I honestly truly believe that sports are so fundamental for young kids, bro.
100%. I've learned like the most life lessons from playing sports, and went to university, went to college, you know, did all that stuff. And, you know, I learned the most playing, the most.
It's life experience. Never, you can't put a price on life experience. No. So how about the balance of the two? Like, how did you, throughout your career, really balance like the social life, the school, and then also training to get in the cage and fight another guy with a shin bone to nose bone? Like literally, you know what I mean?
I wasn't very good at managing it at the beginning. Like I would say, my first 3 or 4 amateur fights, I'd go out drinking like up to 2 weeks.
Oh, it's because you came from the hockey culture, man. You were just a certified.
Like I was just like, I just didn't really take it as seriously as I should have. And you know, right now I've like basically learning from my experiences. You have to, you know, in order to succeed, you have to sacrifice a lot. And so, you know, the past few years I've sacrificed kind of having a social life just to compete and, you know, live a martial artist lifestyle. I think kind of being in university, being around that culture was difficult. You know, I fought my first pro fight when I was like 23.
Yeah, you were just a kid, man.
Yeah, I was just a kid, and which is impressive. Like I was 23 years old in university, and you know, it'd be like a full semester where I would just, you know, just be training for a fight. And you know, that happened my last 2 years of university. And so you know, it was really,
it's tough, man.
Yeah,
it's a big, but like you said something very useful there, and you can't put a price on life experience. I say that all the time, and that's what you see there through that experience. You've learned how to balance it. So what's like, let's say like in the mindset right now, because I'm curious about this too, because when I dabbled a bit with the competing, I would think about the fight every night, man.
Yeah.
Like,
I
do you do that?
Like 24/7.
Like, really? Is that because
because at your level, off my mind. It's
like,
never
how do you manage that though? Because, bro, I'm a nervous guy, so I used to feel it in my stomach.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So I'd be like thinking, like trying to like, you know, trying to fucking manifest and shit. Yeah. You know, trying to be all spiritual, like, just calm down. You know, write it down. I will win and this and that, like you know, all that shit. But what's your approach to it, man?
Just train hard and, you know, just get my confidence from the training, and, you know, training literally everything, leaving no stone unturned. So like, you know, having that getting the jiu-jitsu rounds and getting the wrestling rounds and getting the proper sparring, the proper nutrition, just really being on everything, like every single aspect, like the nutrition aspect, the cardiovascular system aspect, the weightlifting aspect. You know, in the mixed martial arts, you got to train every day as hard as you can, and, you know, go to bed every day asking yourself, did I do enough today to win this fight? And, you know, that if you say yes, and, you know, you go to bed and have a good night's sleep.
You can have a good night's sleep. So that it's like really the self-accountability, man.
Exactly.
You got to just take stock of like where you're at, what have you done? And I hear a lot of fighters do say that they get their confidence through their work ethic.
Yeah.
And that's really it kind of makes sense, right? Because it's like your homework for the test.
Yeah. And you also learn how to manage that anxiety and that stress. Like, for example, I used to watch footage of my opponent like 24/7 if I knew you know who you're fighting.
So, right? You know what it was in amateurs when we were boxing, we didn't know who we just show up and you figure it out.
Yeah, that's usually how amateur goes. That's how my amateur fights went, other than my last two. But yeah, like as a pro, you know, I for my one fight in particular, my loss, it was the worst performance I ever had. I trained so hard for this fight, like literally the hardest I've ever trained. You got to train smart, right? Like it's much different than.
What's the difference between? Because this is something I actually I'm happy you brought that up, because I've seen it a lot too. Is like these guys have like these big ass wars. Like when we would spar, I would like it because we'd smack each other, but we're being a little bit more technical than we're trying to just go in there and kill each other. Once I see that, so that would be not training smart.
Yeah,
you're just trying to kill each other, right?
Yeah. So from, you know, gaining that experience as a pro, I've been pro for like 5 years now. Basically training smart would be training actual, you know, more so MMA and your weaknesses, and, you know, showing up to the proper practices like the wrestling practices or the jiu-jitsu practices. Whereas when I had that bad performance in particular, I was training really hard, as in like I was pushing my body by like doing these crazy runs and these sprints and like, you know, doing 6-minute sparring rounds and 6-minute pad work, but I wasn't doing like the proper, you know, mental, you know, I wasn't thinking about the fight properly. I was, you know, giving myself anxiety by watching my opponent, you know, but watching my opponent just like every single night. What did he do? What does he do at this point? But then,
rather than focusing on yourself.
Exactly. And you got to focus on yourself. And it's not just about, you know, who's in better shape. Like, for example, that fight, I guarantee you I was in much better shape than my opponent. But guess what? I got stopped in the first round, right? So, I mean, yeah, you have to be in good shape, but you also have to be a sound martial artist. Whereas, you know, you got to have good defense, good offense, and all kind of the skills that go with it.
And you know who I love hearing talk about this, that kind of like relatively what you were just talking about, is GSP, man. If anybody if they don't watch fighting, like check him out talking on Rogan and shit, man. He is so interesting when he talks about the martial arts mindset.
Yeah.
He's so good at when he talks about that. But when you experience a loss in fighting, like what's the following days like? Because I always like it's a very difficult process, man.
It's horrible because, you know,
but there's value in there.
Yeah, you put so much time and effort into, you know, that fight that I just kept talking about. That was like the worst loss I've ever handled, because firstly, like I trained my ass off and I thought I was doing the right things, right? There's a difference between doing the right things and actually thinking and doing the right things. You know, I thought I was doing the right things, but I obviously wasn't. Like I needed to, like I got choked out in like the first round in that fight. I should have probably done more jiu-jitsu. Should have, you know, my game plan for that fight was to push kick him in the stomach, and I did the very opening frame, and then I didn't really have anything else. Like I had zero answers because I just worked on that push kick way too much.
Was it working?
It worked. I hit him once and he fell. You know, I dropped him with it. And I'm like, oh yeah, because he was like standing in his videos that I was watching, he was standing like, you know, really open and square. And so his body was open. And the previous fight, I stopped my opponent. I dropped him with that exact push kick. So I was like, okay, if I just hit him once, he's going down. He went down, but he got back up. So yeah.
And then you didn't have plan B, C, B,
literally,
C, D,
I went. I went to push kick him again, and you know he blocked it, and then I went to go kick him in the leg, and then he just hammered me once, and I was like on one. Like when you're kicking someone, you're on one leg, so you're off balance.
Yeah,
and your chin is up in the air, and so my chin was up in the air. I hit him, I get dropped. And so, like, he got on mount and started elbowing me in the face, which does not feel good.
Yeah, of course, man.
And then, like, I turned my back and he choked me out. And I'm like, like that was the worst because I thought I was so ready for that fight, but I was not at all.
And then the lesson was probably the most useful thing that you can take from it,
100%, right? 100%, yeah.
And then going forward, you take that information that you've gained from there and use it in the next fight, and that's what it's about at the end of the day, right, Tom? Like you're just fucking learning as you go. You taking what you use, what is useful, and discard what is not. I think that's Bruce Lee. That's Bruce Lee for you. But now, leading up to how do you feel like in regards to the body right now? Like leading up to the fight week, like right now, like because it's soon.
This is the.
That's why he's not having pints. He's not having a couple casuals today. Just your buddy over here.
So this is the heaviest I've ever fought. I'm fighting at 185. I used to fight at 155. Right. My very first pro fight. Then I moved up to 170, and now I'm fighting at 185. I walk around at like 220. So I feel like I'm
fucking hell, man. Yeah. How are you fighting at 155, man?
I remember
asking you that all the time. Like, man, holy fuck, you're jacked, bro. How the fuck are you fighting at 155?
That's another thing with when you gain experience, you just realize like the dumbest shit you do. Like, why did I ever? Well, yeah, you're like, why did I ever compete at 155 when I would walk around at like 195?
Were you cutting Were you cutting a lot,
dude? I was 8 weeks out from the last time I fought at 155.
What year was that, by the way?
2018.
2018. So not too long ago.
No. Yeah. So my coach was like, "How much do you weigh?" I'm like 195. He's like, "Holy shit, man, that's so dumb." He's like, "This is the dumbest thing ever." But I've definitely, increasing the weight classes. I definitely feel much better. So
yeah. So you had to fight. So when you were fighting at 155 at that time, what's the most you cut?
Okay, so I would say I began at 195, and have to do literally every single day. I count my calories now, but it's not as bad. Like, right. Like I could get away with eating, a few shitty meals a week, whatever. Like I want to get some buffalo chicken sandwich, whatever. I'll just, but I don't have as much craving.
There's a little bit of wiggle room.
Yeah, I don't have as much craving because I'm not cutting as much weight. However, when you're cutting down to 155 and you're eating like 1,800 calories a day for 7 weeks, 8 weeks, like all you think about is food. Yeah. Like that's the only thing you think about. And you're like, when's my next meal? When's my next meal? When can I have my next meal? And having like a little protein bar that's like a peanut butter chocolate like flavor. It's like the best, like it just tastes so good. But at the end of the day, it's like a shitty protein bar, right?
It's
you're
nothing.
Just so hungry. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I'm glad those days are over.
Yeah, 100%. And now it's a new chapter in a way, Yeah. It's a little bit challenging because the guys you're in it's for 185 is no fucking joke. You know what I mean? It's a big class,
Yeah, but the thing is, okay, so if you look at it, there's all these fighters that compete at 135, 145,
right.
155, and which I was 155. But there's a surplus of those fighters, and so it's more difficult to sign with a major promotion if you're fighting in the lower weight classes because there's so many guys.
Yeah, like that's a good point.
10-0, and they're like, and then they'll be like, well, there's about 50 other guys that are 10-0 at your weight class. Get in line, right? But if you're 10-0 as a middleweight, you're like, okay, you're fighting for the UFC title, right?
And man, by the way, 155 seems to be the most stacked, one of the most, right?
Gagey, Chandler,
yeah, if you're talking about the UFC, but I'm sure there's plenty of other guys.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough division, man. Like, I'm glad I'm not fighting in that division.
Yeah,
anymore.
155 is a really tough division, man. Yeah. But what do you think's the state of like the UFC boxing, the fight world right now? What do you think? What do you think about it, man? What's your opinion on it?
I think the UFC's taken over, man. Like it's crazy how much traction it's gotten. I don't really know. I've never really been like a big boxing fan.
Right.
I don't get me wrong. I love boxing. Like I watched the Tyson Fury fight. That's the last fight I've watched. It was incredible. I like watching Canelo Alvarez.
Yeah.
Those guys. But I mean, like, I just don't know. Does UFC pull better numbers or like bigger numbers? Like how do?
I think so. I like we could fact check that, but yeah. I think they're probably up there for bigger numbers because boxing usually doesn't go toe-to-toe with them on big fight nights.
No, I wouldn't either.
Like, if you're talking about biggest pay-per-views of all time, obviously Mayweather holds that.
Yeah.
He holds that, but solely him.
But how does Mayweather hold that? He was never really an exciting fighter. He just liked to talk shit.
Yeah,
his fights were not like anything spectacular.
It's not like he was a Tyson going out there and fucking literally dicing guys within seconds.
Which I don't understand that. He was the highest grossing pay-per-view
he was
athlete.
He had the full package in regards of the undefeated, He also was very skilled defensively, but yeah, he was not very, very, very exciting when it comes to like the average fan wouldn't really appreciate it as
100%,
much.
100%.
And that's what the UFC does a good job of.
Yeah.
Is tagging in on the average fan.
Yeah.
That would want to tune back because it's fucking exciting, man.
Oh man, it's the most exciting sport. There's never like, if there's a big pay-per-view event on in the UFC and there's just so much buzz around it. Like I remember when Francis Ngannou was fighting in Anaheim in January. Like that was huge. Like you just watch one of those events or the MSG card in November. Like you just watch those events and you're just like, holy shit! Like that was like the coolest shit ever.
You've been to UFCs obviously before, right?
Yeah. Have you?
Yeah, I've been. I went to New York. I watched the Baddest Motherfucker belt. I was there for that. That was fucking dope. And then twice in Toronto. Obviously, Max Holloway fights.
Okay, yeah.
Those ones, not the GSP times. Like I wasn't even in MMA at that time.
2018 would it have been the last one?
Probably, yeah. Think about it. Yeah. Fuck, that's a good point, actually, man.
I think they're coming back sometime this year. So
they usually come in. They usually come like in the fall. I feel like, or December. I think it's December they usually come. Well,
either September or December, yeah.
Yeah, they usually come around that time. And Dana says he loves coming to Toronto. I watched when Conor McGregor was actually fighting Floyd Mayweather, which I think, just to piggyback off that pay-per-view list, I think Conor's up there for top pay-per-views ever.
Oh my God, he has to.
Yeah, like Conor and Mayweather might be one of the top ones too.
Yeah.
Mayweather occupies a lot of the top positions there. But I saw, when they were on the tour, oh my God, dude, they came to do at the Molson app, the press conference, dude. I'm telling you right now, that was a buzz, man.
Dude, that would have been. Did you have to pay for tickets for that, or was it a free
no? It was
event?
free, man.
It was.
It was free.
And it was like packed.
Right out on the. You can actually see a picture of me on the fucking. The thing. Like I'm just going nuts. I was a fan of both of them, but Conor was like, that was primetime Conor back then, man.
Conor primetime is
2016, 17, 18.
There's no beating that. Like, I don't know. Where do you think he goes from here?
That's a good question, man. Like, fucking, you see him train, he's yoked out. Talk about weight classes. He's not going back to 155.
He's saying that he's doing 170 now. He actually, he said that today, and he's calling out Kamaru Usman, which is a horrible matchup for him. It's like, man, just like get one or two just wins of like some like, whatever, they could be top 15. Who cares? Like, let's just get McGregor back, get him a few wins. Like, why does he need to fight like a top 3 guy? We don't like. Man,
he did the same thing with Khabib, Tom.
Yeah.
He did the same thing with Khabib. He was off for how long because of the Floyd Mayweather shenanigans. Comes back and like, let's fight Khabib.
Yeah,
like the best guy at the time. And like,
was he coming off a win or a loss at that point?
Man, he was coming off of the loss to Mayweather, and then he didn't fight 2 years before that. That was October 6th, 2018, when he fought Khabib. I still remember the fucking day, dude.
Yeah.
And then last time he fought before that was literally, I think,
Mayweather.
The double champ.
Diaz. Was it Diaz too?
No, it wasn't, because he won the double champ in November against Alvarez. Yeah. And then after that, he went to do the Floyd Mayweather thing in August. Okay. And then he was on a hiatus.
Yeah.
But now we're at the state of Conor. Is like, at the end of the day, I took a lot of inspiration from Conor, bro. Yeah. Like I really did at that time of my life, like 2016.
He's inspired everyone, man.
He has. He inspired a lot of fighters. And you look at like Ian, what's his name? The Irish guy he's fighting. Ian Gary. Yeah. We're starting to see the inspired
Paddy Pimblett.
Paddy Pimblett's another fucking
one,
beauty.
Man.
And speaking of weight cutting, man, he fucking cuts him now? Way too much.
He's disgustingly fat.
He brags about it. But these younger kids, man, they're gonna fucking. He's gonna know, man. There's consequences for that, bro. You know that. Come on.
Oh yeah. Like, I mean, maybe. I mean, I've seen it on Twitter where people tweet like, oh, you know, maybe because he's been rocked in the UFC.
Man, the first fight he almost lost.
Yeah, he got rocked in the UFC, and people are blaming it on the weight cut, which could be true. You never know. Like, you never know. I mean, from my perspective, you know, the heavier you are, the more you could take a shot, right?
And then especially if you're depleting your body leading up to the fight, which I'm sure you know more than anybody, is that you're going to pay the consequences for that. It's going to add to your cardiovascular abilities.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's one of the guys that cuts a lot. But there's some promising up-and-coming fighters, but we're starting to see the inspired, developed youth starting to come up from these guys like Conor, which is so interesting, man.
Actually, I saw a tweet, I think it was yesterday, that he made his UFC debut 10 years ago.
Who?
Conor, or like 9 years ago.
It was 2013, bro. Yeah. Think about it. Fuck, that's actually true, man. I still remember 2013.
It was like a day ago or something that he made his debut.
April 3rd. No, it was April 3rd, 2013.
Was it in Sweden? I remember that.
Yeah, it was in Sweden against Marcus Brimage.
I was in...
I think that's how you say his name.
Yeah, I like there was a lot of hype from after that fight, and when he kind of made his UFC debut, like I've always been like a huge UFC fan, and like like could, see stars. I always just kind of saw the stars coming up. Like Masvidal, I was a huge fan of him growing up.
Oh, well, obviously the backyard boxing, right?
Yeah, and just always loved like his style and that sort of stuff. But then McGregor, what was it? Did he fight Holloway his second UFC fight?
Second UFC fight was Diego Brig or something?
No, that was like a main event fight. No, Diego Brandao.
Okay, so it was first Marcus Brimage. It might have been Max Holloway as the second fight. You're right.
It was like a year layoff because he fucked up his knee or something.
He tore his ACL or MCL. That fight against Holloway, he went to decision. He won that fight. They were both kids at that time. I think happened. Max Holloway was literally 21, bro.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so it would have been 2013 because I was in Greece at the time watching the Holloway fight versus McGregor, and I was like cheering for McGregor because he had like this hype. And then, yeah, you're right. He did get injured that fight.
He got injured 1 year.
Yeah.
He was out, man. And yeah, that was fucked up. That was fucked up to see, man. But around that time, it started to buzz. Did you see him in Cage Warriors too? Did you know about him in Cage Warriors?
No. I knew Paddy Pimblett from Cage Warriors though. Like I watched those events and that sort of stuff. Like I'd mentioned earlier, the UFC Fight Pass events were Cage Warriors.
Cage Warriors is the biggest in Europe.
It's sick, man.
Right?
Cage Warriors is awesome. Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
But I first kind of saw Paddy Pimblett. It was like the first weekend of COVID where everything was kind of shut down. I think Cage Warriors was putting on an event with no fans and that sort of stuff. And this guy does his walkout, and his like walkout song was sick. I'm like, oh, this is a sick song. And then he went out there.
Do you remember what it was? Because he talks about it all the time.
I forget. It's like a remix to Heads Will Roll.
Okay.
It's so good.
I need to look it up.
Oh man, it's amazing.
Even Till. Speaking of Till, his fucking walkout's deadly, dude.
Yeah. It
Sweet
really
Caroline
brings in like fans, like,
and he was fighting too at New York when I saw him in New York.
Yeah, was he?
Yeah,
Kevin Gastelum.
No, it wasn't Gastelum. It was.
It was Gastelum.
Was it Gastelum?
Yeah,
dude?
It was. Yeah.
Fuck, it might have been, eh?
On the George Diaz.
Yeah, the George Diaz
it
one.
Was. Yeah, that was his last win. Till's last win.
Yeah, because then he lost to who did he fight recently?
And then Brunson.
Yeah, Brunson. He lost to.
Yeah, he lost to Brunson. And then who else did he? Then Whitaker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now him and Hamzat, who's fighting this weekend. This will already be the fight will already be done by the time this is out. But
who do you got for that? I
got Hamzat, but it's just because I'm cheering for him. So it's so hard to better than anybody. It's fucking hard to pick fights, man.
Yeah.
Like it's so like that's why it's never good to bet on fights.
No. My buddies in my group chat make fun of me because anytime everyone's like, "Yo, Tommy, what are the UFC bets?" I'll give my bets and. Every single guy says he's gonna win loses, and then so they make fun of me. They give me a hard time. So
I know because it's fighting. I forget how Rogan puts it. It's like it's the maximum risk for or some shit like I don't forget.
There's a lot of variables.
There's a lot of variables that come into play when fighting, and obviously you're risking your health. So there's a lot of things put on the table. That's why I have so much respect for fighters. Because I've seen it just in it takes a special breed. So that's why I'm happy to have you on here and talk about this. And it's worth mentioning too. We had Tommy on the It's Simple podcast, which should be coming out soon as well. This will probably be out before that one, but check that one out too, guys, if you haven't seen it. But lastly, on the fight world, we got to talk a little bit about Logan Paul and Jake Paul, man.
Nice.
I know we talked about that on It's Simple, but we got to get the bites here for the couple casuals too. What do you think about it?
You know what? I've grown to kind of like them, like I kind of don't mind them anymore. I mean, Jake Paul, and here's the thing, man, like when you got that much money and you got that much like fame, people want to train with you, right? And if you have that money, you're willing to dish it out, you're going to get the top trainers in the world. Yep. Like you're going to get the top sparring partners. Like, I mean, they have all the resources. They seem like they're very athletic. They used to wrestle back in the day.
Well, by the way, did you see Logan just was at WrestleMania? That was pretty impressive, man.
I didn't see it.
Check out the highlights, dude. It was pretty impressive. He did like his acrobatics and his ability to jump and his coordinate and it's at the end of the day, people always talk shit, but imagine you doing that.
Yeah.
Like, can you actually do that?
No, I mean fighting. I mean, it's impressive that because fighting is an individual sport. We've talked about that, right? And you know, to go out there and to perform individually, there's a lot of pressure. It's much more than just going out there and fighting. Like you're fighting yourself, right? Just like you were saying, you get sick to your stomach before fights, you know, and that sort of stuff. You know, there's just so much more added pressure, you know, media and that sort of stuff. So for them to go out there and perform like they have, like especially Jake Paul knocking out Tyron Woodley, Ben Askren, it's like whatever, man. Like you see how fat and out of shape he was.
Yeah, he went for the he definitely went for the paycheck, but nonetheless, he still is like a former NCAA champion. World champion.
He's an incredible fighter.
But fuck, it just goes to show he was just so dominant in wrestling, wasn't he? He's an interesting character too. I think I like them all, to be honest. There's not really. I don't really fuck with Funk, the guy fighting this weekend, Aljamain Sterling.
I saw him a lot in Vegas. I've never really been a big fan of him.
Yeah.
Great fighter.
Yeah.
But the thing was like, okay, yeah, that knee to the face is like, that sucks. Like, you know, like that's you know gonna, you know, that's a tough shot to take.
It's just a hell of a way to win the title.
I know. And then he's like, after the fight, he's like cheering, like Mike.
Tom, that was the fucking best part. He's like, he threw the belt. He threw the belt on the floor after the fight. He's like, I'm not accepting this and that. Then like literally the SpongeBob thing. A few moments later, and it's literally him partying.
And then like him like cheersing and stuff.
Man, Jan's taking that. This weekend.
Jan's so sick.
We can put that. Here's the receipt right here. 100% Jan's taking that fight. But other than that, I'm pretty much a fan of everybody, man. Like. There's a lot of promising guys coming up, a lot of veterans. I think the fight game has a lot of more opportunities, and I think you see that in Canada too. Hopefully for you guys that are ripping away, you know what I mean? Like that more opportunities are going to start to trickle down. Yeah. No matter how much people like to hate Conor McGregor, he was big for this. He was big for the sport, man.
You know who I used to not like was Colby Covington. I thought he drew he
flipped it too hard, but then he won you over a bit.
And then he won me over. And then now I don't like George for going and punched him in the face. Like I used to love George, right?
Man, you heard about that. Hey, let's talk about that for just 1 second here, because we're almost at 1 hour, Tom. I like to keep it around that time. But so he went out with the Nelk Boys. They did a pod together, which shout out to the Nelk Boys, Toronto boys.
Yeah.
And then they were at a restaurant after, and Masvidal was watching, I guess, Bob Menery's story on Instagram, and he showed up, and he's back to the backyard boxing day. Like he's a street fighter, man.
Bro, just take the L though. Like,
I know.
Just like take the L. You know what I mean? Like, we get it, you lost, and like he said some
things about his kids. That was his thing.
But then
he rushed them, bro. Yeah. Like back in the day, we used to call that like when a couple guys used to come, or a guy used to just come in like boom, 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 like beat you, like punch you a bunch of times. We call that getting rushed. Yeah. That's what he did. He rushed them.
Yeah, kind of a bitch move.
Kind of, right? That's what you would
Especially think. Out on this, like you're out in a nice dinner, you know, steakhouse, whatever, you know.
You didn't expect that.
It's kind of embarrassing, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and then after the embarrassing part on Colby's part was that he pressed charges. That's dust too. That's so
the
dust.
Whole situation's
the whole situation's fucking brutal, and then it happens. It's fighting is. This is why my last piece of advice, guys, is that. Learn how to fucking throw a punch. You got to know how to fight. Because, Tom, there's a lot of guys out there, they literally don't know how to fucking throw a 1-2.
Yeah, it's wild, man. I don't know how people go outside without knowing how to fight. Bad, like, they just don't know what to do. Yeah.
Don't you feel like it just adds a little more oomph to your step, and it gives you a little bit,
I'm very confident.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not scared of confrontation. Right. You know, if someone tries to fuck with me, you know, it's game over.
And even outside of that, just in your head, it's like a biological thing.
Yeah.
This is my advice to you guys. If you know how to throw a 1-2, you're already like 90% above that most guys.
See some street fights and it looks pretty bad.
It looks pretty bad. A lot of guys don't. They're swinging for the fences. I always give advice, if you're in a street fight, just aim straight, shoot straight. Don't wind up. A lot of guys do that. They wind up, but. Don't get into a street fight, guys. But lastly here, on the final segment, a couple casuals, Tom, I like to do a thing. It's called salute. Salute is like when we do like a fucking little cheers or something. Obviously, you don't have booze today, but it's okay.
Yeah. Can we do a salute still?
We could do a little salute, but you gotta just have like a little piece of, like, not advice, words of wisdom, a little salute that we call it in Italy, like a cheers for the couple casuals viewers. Go for it. Anything, doesn't matter.
Salute to good buddies, good relationships, working hard, and you know, being on the right path. So
salute, guys. Cheers, Tom.
Cheers,
I know
brother.
it's always. I'll drink twice for him, but guys, check him out. He's got a fight coming up. He's got a lot of exciting fights. He's a fucking great guy. He's a great fighter, and follow his journey. Tommy, tell him where to find you.
At Tommy Theo on Instagram. I think my Twitter's like Tommy Theo 93, but I don't really.
I'll plug your Instagram here. Check it below in the bio. Guys, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you. I appreciate you, Tommy.
Thanks
it, man. And until next time, salute.